Hey guys, so in this next part we're gonna do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. No, I'm just kidding. In this next part we're gonna look at the infrastructure layer and we'll still go ahead with our TDD methodology. So what we will do is start by implementing our iExchange provider with our Frankfurter HTTP client and the factory, and so we'll unit test those pieces. Just a note, remember you can pop over to the GitHub repository in the description and there you can follow along with what we covered today. Today was jam-packed. We covered the infrastructure layer. This included the cache service, the exchange providers, and so much more. Just remember, the infrastructure layer is not directly referenced by any other of the core layers of the clean architecture. It is only referenced by the presentation layer for the sake of dependency injection. In this section, we achieve something called dependency inversion, which is the D in solid principle. It means that no other part of the application is tightly coupled to this layer. However, this layer uses the domain entities created in the domain layer, and it implements interfaces created in the domain layer and application layer. Cool, so jumping into the solution, we're going to start by adding a new NuGet package called mock. And the reason we're going to do this is because for the domain layer, all we needed to do was do single class testing. But for the infrastructure layer, we're going to have to do things like mock the HTTP client and mock a few interfaces. So we're going to install this library called mock. So let's go ahead and install that. Cool, so once that NuGet package is installed, we're going to go ahead and add our infrastructure folder. And now we're going to go ahead and add our Frankfurter exchange provider test, and we can go ahead and add our first test, which was going to be find latest should. What I already did, because I finished the domain layer in the previous video, was I did create this interface, but of course the interface, you have nothing to test yet, so I just built the interface according to what I planned. So now let's go and create the Frankfurter implementation of this interface. To start off with, I'm going to create a few little mocks that all my tests in this class will use. So we'll create private read-only mock HTTP, and now let me check what it's called that I need. HTTP response method. Now this class, the Frankfurter exchange provider, doesn't exist yet, so we will create the class. And now we're going to make this class implement iExchange provider. Let's try and implement the interface. And so we are ready to start testing this interface. The reason I've got this mock on the HTTP response message is because I'm going to be mocking the HTTP clients, and we don't want to be sending a real web request which are HTTP clients. We're going to send fake ones. This should be a new one, and here what we're going to do is inject a new HTTP client, and it's going to have this as an object. My apologies, this should not be an HTTP response message. This should be an HTTP message handler. And what we can now do is generate this constructor, and this is all fine. Now we can make our first assertion, and it should call the API once. So we're gonna go await, find latest async. Here we can just put in anything, we don't care. Cool, so because we're accessing a protected method, and thank goodness for GitHub Copilot here, where it actually did figure out something that is quite difficult. We're going to verify the send async, and we're going to say that it should be made only once, and we don't care what the HTTP request method looked like, because we're just checking that it is called once. Okay, so we have one failing unit test, and it's because it didn't call this once. So we will go in here and we will make it call it once. Okay, it's throwing an exception because we actually need to do a little bit more setup on this HTTP message handler. We have to set up the send async method because it is throwing an error. So we need to access a protected method, and we need to set it up. Content, and so now we should have a failing test, a passing test. My apology. Let's look at it. There we go. So we validated that it calls the API once. Following the third rule, we don't want a test to do too much. So this particular one just checks that it gets called. Let's check that it gets called with the correct values. So let's say call API with correct values. And this is where we're going to go and open up Frankfurter's API documentation. Here it is. And the getLatest method we're going to just use is this particular one. Take note, we're going to want to also use the base params. So now that it's copied, let's go ahead and create an expected URL. So we're going to go ahead and say currencycode.usd, and here we can say we don't just want any, but we want the request to have a specific URI. We remove any and we can put in x request URI is equal to expected URI. So that's the beauty of mock. You can really do so much where like you could say either any, or here like we're specifically saying we need it to execute with this URI and this is our unit test, and then let's go and fix our failing test. We know that it needs to use this Frankfurter API, put in currencycode.value. Okay, awesome. So next, let's have a look. So this interface needs to return a currency snapshot. So let's check that it can map to currency snapshot as our next test. And we can say fact map to currency snapshot. So let's jump over here to one of our currency snapshot tests, and let's copy a currency snapshot that we created, and this is fine. We can just type it as expected. Var result equals that, and result should be equivalent to, because it's a reference type, and it should be result.value. Now of course we can already see that the test is going to fail. So we've got a failing test, and so how are we going to correctly implement it with this map logic? So what we need to do is open up the Frankfurter API again. So let's actually go and grab this. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Of course, if you press Ctrl C more than 3 times, you make sure that it's copied properly. And here I'm going to go and add a new folder called responses. And here I'm going to go and add a new class, Frankfurter latest response. And here I'm going to do this fun little thing, edit, paste special, JSON as classes. And now we have pretty much got what it needs to return, although this is not named correctly for C#. So let's fix the naming, and this we're gonna say that it is called base, and then these are all fine, but I don't want floats, I want decimal, because I am dealing with money, and in my mind I'm going to be doing conversions, and let's give it the full spectrum of memory for this. And with that we do have, and let's make it nullable, as we shouldn't require that every single response has all of these. I don't want to pull in a bunch of zeros when JSON convert tries to map this. Another fun little trick while we're doing it is you can remove unnecessary with the solution there, and it will go and remove all unnecessary usages from the entire solution. Let's go back here, and now we can say get JSON async, which we tried to do earlier. Okay, still like this test is failing. I'm not even going to waste my time. Let's map this to the response that we expect, and let's create a result. And for the rate, what we need is one of these. So let's figure out how to get that, and we're going to have to use reflection to do this. So we will get the type and iterate over the properties. So we got the exchange, we can put it in here and we can return the results. But okay, so let's go and have a look. What we can see is that we need to do further setup on the response, because currently this is going to give you that empty JSON, which will give an error. I need to go and open up the Frankfurter API, which we had, and let's go and paste that in here. And let's go and squiggly bracket there. Okay. Okay, great. Having looked through these APIs with you, we've mapped to CurrencySnapshot, we've called API with correct values, we've called API once, we've done all these things. And now what I'm going to do is just jump into building up the rest of this infrastructure layer. By the time I'm done coding this, will probably be on the next saga of Dragon Ball Z. I'm just going to get into it. I'll show you the results when I'm done. Check you later. Hey guys, so with that I have completed the development of the infrastructure layer using TDD. Let's take a quick summary through what else has been done since I went through the process with you on find latest should. In a similar way I did search should. So here I also gave it things like JSON responses, and I made sure it would call the API once, would map currency correctly to screenshots. I give it what I would expect, and then it's busy mapping the JSON response here to the correct DTO. At the end, the snapshots should be equivalent. I go have a look at the implementation. We just get the JSON, iterate over it, and return the result. Okay, I also implemented the factory pattern. Down the line, we are extendable and we can start supporting other currency providers. We can also have a quick look at the unit tests for the cache service. The cache should return null if no key is found. It should call the distributed cache, and we learned about the power of mock. Obviously, there's no real distributed cache running in my unit test, but I'm mocking what a distributed cache does. And in another video, we'll get into setting up Redis and what the service really looks like when it's working. We make sure that it does deserialize JSON correctly and that it is going to deserialize JSON with my currency snapshot, because that's really important for my system. We could have a quick look at what the cache service here looks like. Pretty straightforward. Injecting the distributed cache, and then we are checking whenever we get one, the cache value is there. If it's not, we return null, and if it is there, we deserialize it into the type. I also did quickly a TimeProvider, and we can see that it should return UTC now. So yeah, in a brief nutshell, it looks like that is my infrastructure layer that's been implemented. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Again, give it a like and subscribe. Next up, we're going to jump into the application layer. Hopefully we'll be nice and fresh for the new videos coming up. And yeah, let's get into this and keep on enjoying more awesome stuff we're going to learn in .NET together. Cheers for now.